Being in the presence of a powerful coach who asks amazing questions is one of the delights of my life. Whether it's a coach I've hired, and Melissa Ford, today's guest, is one of them, or someone I interview on the podcast, the benefits and interchange that can occur with a beautiful coach is really exponential. Melissa Ford is a seasoned business and life coach joining me in conversation about whether or not you need a vision to begin something new, the tools necessary for your own growth, personal mantras, and getting real with ourselves. I love this episode and know you will too. So I will see you in the episode. Welcome back to Mystical Sisterhood. This is your host, Maureen Spielman, and today I am with Melissa Ford. I'm going to read a little bit about Melissa so you have a background, and my excitement level, my energy around this conversation is really high today because Melissa and I have known each other for many years. I want to guess 15 plus, but little bit about Melissa's bio. She's a master business and life coach who helps people grow their leadership, impact, income, and joy. Her clients range from highly committed coaches and entrepreneurs to executives and career changers. With over 20 years of experience, service with capital letters is the cornerstone of everything she does. This value shines through her books, Living Service, The Journey of a Prosperous Coach, and is a contributing author to the #1 bestseller, When All Boats Rise, 12 Coaches on Service as the Heart of a Thriving Practice. Beautiful. I love that. You're here in the Chicago area with me. I want to say thanks for being here.
Yeah, delighted to be here. And when your invitation came in, I'm just like, yeah, of course. Let's get the date. What is it?
Exactly. I felt the same way before we hit record today. I always like to set an intention with my guest. And when we first met, it was within Susan Lucci's circles. And just a big shout out for Susan, as it may not have been your starting point. I often name her as my starting point, but just this really important container she created in the form of circles that were incredibly impactful and powerful in my life. And not only got me to see and seek new parts of my inner worlds, and she did so masterfully, but also connect me with women who were on similar but their own paths. So that's where we first met and saw, I think, a light in one another.
Absolutely. Sue is a trailblazer, and I appreciated that. I appreciated having a woman step forward and have courage and model for me who I wanted to be. And she was also, I haven't spoken to Sue in a long time, but she was always on the learning curve. And I appreciate that because that's what humans are built for. They're built to learn and unlearn. And she role models it. She was always like that. An activist in our communities and somebody, again, who had the courage to raise her hand and said, yeah, me.
Absolutely.
So love you, Sue.
A willingness, let's just talk about that. Models of women trailblazing, and it doesn't even have to be this big, bold trailblazing, but really stepping into their truth and their knowing, and we'll cover that today. But I'll just say right here, you've been that for me. And I'm thrilled to be sitting here with you to get into what your career and your life has looked like as you've applied the principles that became important to you. Just that idea of you being a model. And the funny thing is, when I began, I think this was at the start or advent of your coaching career, is I was at my grade school, Lincoln Elementary in River Forest. And that was the beginning steps that you were taking, I believe, into speaking. And I ran with Annie Dwyer, the social emotional club at our school, and we would try to find the best speakers. And I remember you came and you presented on parenting, and I can't remember the topic. I probably still have notes from it, but you to me were like 10 years ahead of where I was. And not only did we meet in that space, but also I hired you for coaching years later. And that was even way before. I think I had 2 different times with you, if I can remember, but that was before I even knew that I would get into coaching myself. So what can you add there about these mentors in our lives and these models? And how important they can be.
Yeah. Well, I'm grateful to all of them. And when I first got on this service path, I really thought I could do it alone. I really thought, how hard can it be to grow a coaching business? And I went after it and attempted to build a business. And I had a friend of mine, I called her my hobby partner because we weren't really having a business. It wasn't profitable. And finally, I got to a place where I decided to hire a coach to help me. And that's what was missing for me. I think back, I'm finishing my 15th year with my coach, 15 years coaching with
Wow.
this person and other people. It's a good addiction. Once you start, and once you've got a couple at one time, it's just amazing. But I'm grateful to all of them because I wouldn't be where I am today. I certainly wouldn't have the kind of loving relationships that I have. I certainly would not be making the impact that I know the work makes. Just incredibly grateful for it. It's just beyond. Right now, as I'm looking at you, I can look on my wall. I have a giant Post-it note and it's got my clients, the list of my clients in 2024. And I look at all of those people and they're a direct result of the work that I did with my coach over the years and still do. So just extreme gratitude.
So good. I'm wondering about that coaching journey for you. And I find it very interesting that you say at first, I saw it as a hobby. When you look back at Melissa back then, what was she carrying that she was being called to let go of?
First of all, she didn't know she's carrying anything.
Mhm.
She had no idea she was carrying anything. You had given me a question in advance of this conversation. Did I have a vision?
Yeah.
Did I have a vision for what I wanted to create? I did not have a vision. I was in a place where I was just trying to get out of the hole. So there isn't any vision down in a hole other than get me the hell out of this hole. And having severe doubt that it would even be possible. So that's where I started and had no idea what had to be transformed and had no idea that there really wasn't a me that had to let it go.
Mhm.
It had to be a learning and an unlearning and a willingness to make mistakes and learn that making mistakes were part of learning. I had a really poor relationship to mistake making and learning. I wanted to do it in private, look like I had it together in public, and just get on with it. I would say that there was a lot of ego, and I was unaware that's the place that I was operating from. It was very much a protective armor.
Mhm.
I didn't see it. And so this process of growing a business has required my own transformation. It's occurred in some of the strangest possible ways, but it's required that in order for me to do what I'm doing today.
I love that. And thank you for being so vulnerable about that place you were in and this idea that no, there wasn't a vision. But something was pulling you forward. Something where I may have had a question about that too is as a beginning entrepreneur, or now it's named solopreneur because it really is a solo gig. It can be, right? If we're not calling in the people that can really make it juicy for us. But there can be a lot of times that I have felt like giving up or not sure where it's going, and I still have remnants of that now. What I know now is if that were to occur, I had great fun doing it, and that is a takeaway and a guidepost, but this idea too that we can do what we love and make money from it. I think for women especially, but maybe men too, that's really can those two things go together?
They can. And it's not going to come together the way you think it will. So it's not that, we all want the easy path.
Sure.
We all want the easy path. And it's not going to come easily, typically. And it's not going to be the path you think it's going to be. And there's going to be a lot of, I can say in my case and the people that I've worked with, self-doubt, insecurity, shame, fear, need, the whole thing. And that's actually typically where many people begin. And if that's not you and you're listening to this and you're thinking, no, that's not the case, I'm speaking about my own experience and not everybody, because it looks different for everybody. It is possible. I'm an example of it. And it wasn't an overnight success. And I think that is something we see in our society is we can just see the end product and we think that's easy, that's quick. And we don't see that end product really had nothing to do with the fundamentals that were required to be learned and integrated in order to create what somebody said they wanted. It just isn't.
Yes.
So in my case, it was, here's the fundamentals of client creation. Here's how to continue to improve as a coach. Here's how to set fees. This is what service is. What service? I had no idea what service is. And then continuing to go deeper and see what that actually means. Live it as best I could. Pick myself up again if I tripped and fell down. Have the use of my coach and then carry on. So where I'm at today, if somebody had said, hey, set the vision for where you want to be, where I'm at today and what I'm experiencing, that would have never been in the realm of possibility. It wouldn't have even been seen as a remote possibility. It wasn't even on the radar. So if you don't have a vision, don't worry about it. Just begin. Just begin. And you don't need to have belief in yourself. I'd even go as far as you don't need to trust. You basically just need to take a step. And we all know a step to take. We all know a thing to do. Just what you knew to do was show up at Sue's circles. I knew to do that. I knew to get help with my parenting. I knew all these things. So just do that thing.
Follow where you're being led. I love that.
Yeah.
I know you've been, like you said, 15 years in the coaching business. And I want to get your take on this because there are a lot of bright and shiny words being tossed around and used a lot, including manifestation and abundance. And in terms of your coaching, where do those words fit in? And how do you relate to them? How do you define your coaching? And what are the qualities or the really important parts of what you bring together?
Probably don't utter the word manifestation or abundance. I tend to be much more practical. No bullshit. I don't want to hear your excuses. I have a real love and affection for somebody wanting something and then going beyond that, where they say, not only am I wanting this, Melissa, but I'm willing to take what action needs to be taken. So abundance and all that doesn't really come into the equation for me. It's questions around, so my coaching looks like coaching. It also looks like mentorship. It's one of my favorite questions to ask. And this just recently happened. There's this really amazing woman who is starting her own business. And she shared that she showed up to do a connect conversation with somebody live. And that person was talking about all their certifications. And she felt this small. And this beautiful woman said, I felt this small. And the woman was going on. And what am I supposed to say? And when she was finished, I asked, did that really happen? She goes, no, none of it. I'm like, is that really true? Is that really what happened? And she was like, yeah, no, none of it. No.
And she knew.
She knew. And I think that's the thing is that our minds love drama. They love drama, oh, let me tell you the story when, or this is what really happened. Did that really happen? Is that really true? No, it didn't happen. Now that has a lot of courage to be able to just go laugh and say, no, it didn't really happen. I didn't step up to the plate quite like that. There'd be a little defending and then finally like, okay, fine. Yeah, it really didn't happen like that. Here's the experience. That's what it felt like it internally.
Yeah.
But no, she didn't do any of those things.
And you offered the question, which from a coaching perspective, it's a really powerful question. And there's an art in that because it can seemingly feel confrontational, but done with care and compassion. And it's almost like the foundation of the relationship. What is it in that makes it like someone be in receiving mode for that?
I think it's a couple of things. One is that question doesn't get asked unless you've asked it often of yourself. I can't be asking questions or posing options to people unless I've asked myself the question,
Yeah.
unless I've actually tested out the option,
Mm.
unless I've walked into my own discomfort and said, okay, what's going on here? So you can't ask those questions unless, again, it's take thy own medicine. Don't be doling these things out unless you yourself have partaken. So
Right.
that's one. The other thing is that question isn't the first question right out of the gate that I might be asking somebody. My job as a coach is to get everyone to relax,
Mm.
to get the client to relax, the prospective client to relax. I need to be relaxed.
Yeah.
And then it's about trust. Coaching is a relationship business.
Yeah.
It's not me coming to perform and looking impressive and looking like I've got all the answers and I'm the badass coach and so you should hire me, or I know the way. I don't know the way.
Mhm.
So it's the relationship has to be there as well.
Yeah.
And also sometimes there's a leader question, which is, can I ask you a question? Would you be open to hearing it? Because if somebody says yes to that, there's a bit more receptivity versus I just come in and I say,
Yeah.
now, come on, is that really true? No, I'm not saying it like that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there's an art to it as well, and a real understanding that humans, that we all want to be loved
Mm-hmm.
and respected and considered.
Yeah, for sure. For yourself, how do you come to the table as the most nourished Melissa? What do you need to be doing in your personal life in order to really give yourself the resources and so you are showing up in your wholeness as much as possible?
I continually get coached. I want somebody to help me see where I'm living in an apparent reality that really isn't true. So I'm constantly getting coached. I'm constantly learning. That's one thing. The other thing is I don't jam up my calendar with back to back to back sessions. Before our call, there were 2 hours. I had finished a call and I had 2 hours. So I went out for a walk. I actually ate a good meal.
Mm-hmm.
So those things, taking care, walking, working out, because I know how good it feels, even when I don't feel like it. Space in my calendar.
Have you had to reform any relationship you did or did not have with boundaries in your life?
I didn't, that really wasn't a issue for me. And yet I can say there are cases for sure. But I was so singularly focused on wanting to build this business
Mhm.
that really the boundary was on not working so much.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, I had to learn that actually if I had more space in my calendar and I slowed down, and slowed down didn't mean not giving it my all, but it meant giving myself some time for my mind to rest, because that's the tool that we use. It's our ability to be present, be aware, be caring and loving, so that questions can bubble up. But if I'm burned out and you're my fourth call and I've not gotten out of this chair,
Yeah.
I'm doing you a huge disservice. I'm not helping at all.
That's true.
So I'm not going to do that. I have a high level of respect for the investment people make in themselves, and I will show up ready and focused and let's go.
Yes. Have you ever had people come to you where, or is that kind of teased out in sort of a prospective client call where you are sensing the readiness on their end may not be there? Because I'm the kind of person even who can get super excited about things. And then almost I have to, this is a newer practice, but tell myself, Maureen, back up a little bit before you embark on this. But does that ever occur where you're like, this would be a great prospective client, but you know, you want to work in the highest integrity you can to be in service of service?
Yeah, that was part of a stage that I had to go through in my own coaching journey. There was a point in my journey where I was at a place where I wanted something more for the person than they wanted for themselves. And oh, it was a tough one because I could see it. And what I finally saw was that's not useful. That's not good. This person is not going to change if I want it more than they do. In fact, one thing I started to see was that if I saw somebody where there wasn't quite a readiness, I would ask the question, why do you have to change? You can stay where you're at.
Yeah.
You don't have to call it stuck. It's just currently where you're at. That was a big obstacle for me. Now, I really do look for somebody's readiness because this work together won't be successful unless it's there. And readiness doesn't mean it feels right, it's the right time, I feel confident. Readiness often is a feeling of there's a little trepidation. Oh my gosh, am I really going to do this? Readiness doesn't mean that I trust myself or I believe in myself. I'll often say to people, you don't even need to believe in yourself. That's just another hoop you've got to jump through. We're not going to do that. So I look for somebody's readiness. And sometimes what I'll say to people, if I seek some level of hesitation, is I'll say to them, I'd like to share with you what's required. Would you like to hear what's really required? If you want to get the most out of this, here's what's required. What's required is that when we say we're going to coach and we've got a session, you're committed to showing up for yourself. And if you have any thought that this isn't something, this date, this time, it's possible for you, my recommendation is we get a time that you absolutely know you would show up to, like you would show up to a flight to Paris at the airport.
Yeah.
Like you're showing up.
Yes.
So that's one thing. The other thing is that as honest as you can be with yourself, no matter how uncomfortable it is, you and I, if you show up like that, you can start to really get some traction. And I want you to know there's nothing that I could be thinking of you, any judgment, anything. I'm in your corner. Like it's together, we're going to do this.
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll think specifically about the person, and then I'll just think, what would be required of this person? And then I ask them, what do you think would be required of you?
Yep.
What do you see might get in your way? And we can have that discussion.
Yeah. There's just such beautiful questions and invitations and for contemplation and awareness. I was just thinking about you have had the honor to work with so many individuals. And how do you, as you've witnessed people create whatever they're looking to create in their lives, what stands out to you, what you learn just about people as a collective, who we are as individuals and who we are as a collective and what that means for humanity?
We're all the same. There's different stories, but it's similar conditioning. And definitely people have different experiences in their past. But what ends up occurring is that an idea of who we think we are gets formed, and we really think it's true. And it's not. It's not who and what we are. It's a narrative. And it's always built on deficiency, lack, security, scarcity, not enoughness. And it shows up in every human, even the ones that really seem very confident, they've got it going on too. So when I meet somebody that presents like that, very confident, very whatever, I know there's something underneath that they don't want anybody to know about. And it's interesting. We all have it. And the thing we don't want anybody to know about is actually the thing that's not true about us. So I can say that just looking at our situation politically, and we all want hope. We all want to come together. We all want things to work out. We'd much rather operate from that level of high on the ladder, that level of energy than the other one. It's what we are. I think that in our world, this waking up and growing up and developing a different relationship with our thinking is really what's changing. And I see it more and more. It's not just in people who are in my world, but in the coaching world or people who want to get coached. But I just see it when I'm reading articles or I'm listening to a podcast or I'm listening to somebody on the street.
Good. It's so good because I think about sitting in Susan's family room so many years ago, and I think about a lot of women who were in those groups and what they're doing now. And it's so spectacular and it's so fun to watch each other grow. And that also it's for all of us. And one of the old constructs was ageism, right? And that when you got to a certain age, there was no way that you were forming something new. I don't know where that thinking came from, like we were just going to coast the rest of our lives. But what do you know to be true about that old ageism paradigm? And is that just being completely blown through the roof too?
What I know about it is it's each individual's own journey, meaning it's only going to change if you start to question it yourself. So as I've aged, and now I'm in a time of my life where I'm thinking, I never thought I'd be here. I never thought I'd be this age. I never thought that I would have 15 years under my belt. I never thought I would have a 35-year-old son and a 33-year-old daughter. When I say that, it's interesting to watch people's eyes. They're just like, what? My husband and I, we just can't quite wrap our minds around it. Ageism, this is age and women continuing to make a difference, men and women, and living their lives and learning and not having their worlds shrink is something that you're probably in the next year or so going to be seeing me step into more and more. I just started listening to Tracy Goss. She wrote a book called The Last Word on Power. And Tracy, I don't know Tracy's age, if she's in her 70s or where she's at, but she talks about the courage to grow old. There's something about that, because are we just going to accept that it looks like, as I said before, my world's shrinking and I'm insignificant, I'm irrelevant, I can't add anything, I'm invisible? Or is that going to shift for me so I can see more of how do I want this to be? And what is actually, back to that question, true? It's true. There's too much life to be lived and not starting to pack it in, so that if somebody once said, I want to finish life totally used up rather than crawling my way to death. I want to slide into home base. Like I want to go for it. And that's gonna require each person to get clear about what are their beliefs around ageism, around age. I know I had a lot of negative beliefs about aging, and I see it, in our culture and women and men now. And so now it's come back, and it's my
Love that.
my opportunity to look closer and be a trailblazer for women. Yeah.
We need it so much, Melissa.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm so happy I asked that question because I don't think I've really asked it yet on a podcast. And it's such an important one. And a fellow coach of mine, she put this video up in one of our threads, and I haven't watched it yet, but I did see that the title of it was a 96-year-old woman saying that she was having her perfect childhood, like of her life in the now. And that's like, imagine a world where more of that is being circulated, because on the flip side of that, I had an experience the other day where I got to go to a gathering where there were a lot of young women there, I'd say in their late 20s, early 30s. And I was sitting quietly on my own, kind of, I had connections there for sure, but I was sitting on my own a little bit, or I was standing on the porch and looking. And the young women, they knew a lot. They knew so much and they were owning it and all the good things. And I knew that whatever the 25 or 30 years that I had, not above them or whatever, but my life experiences, they do contribute towards a wisdom and a knowing. I've been through loss of my parents. I've been through cancer. I've raised 3 kids, not all being the easiest in that job alone. I've been through a lot. And so that almost earned wisdom. We don't just, it's not handed to us on a silver platter. And you see the popularity of Julia Louis-Dreyfus's podcast, where she's interviewing women who are in their 60s, 70s, 80s, and what do they have to say? And I interviewed Marcy Cole, who has a beautiful group. She's out in Los Angeles called First Tuesdays. And some of the interviews they bring in are also the same kind of work, where they're interviewing women with a lot of wisdom to share. I love it.
What's her name? Marcy?
Marcy Cole. Yes. She's a psychotherapist who I found on Goop, and I loved an article she wrote, goop.com. And I thought, I'm asking her. And then she was ever so gracious. But First Tuesdays was something she started, and it's global and it's virtual. And she's got some great work she's doing within that portal. So yeah, it's good to name that and revisit it.
Yeah, I'll check it out. Thank you for
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, of
Yeah.
course. Yes, but all the power to women above 50, 60, 70, whatever it is. How fun is that? How there's so much to learn.
Yeah, there is so much to learn. And I don't want to fall into the trap of being consumed with whatever the beliefs are here or the conditioning here around what age means. And so this is part of the work that I'm currently getting coached on, is to see beyond that. Yeah, and it's for all of us to do, because in our lives we hit various stages, and there's something that gets presented for us to work through, to wake up to the misunderstanding around whatever that is.
Yeah. And what's coming to mind for me is we're talking about this work. You said in the very beginning, it's our unlearning, it's our learning and our unlearning. So, what the heck? We're going to do all these years of the unlearning, and then we're going to go back to becoming a smaller version of ourselves because we're advancing through the years. That would be a shame.
Yeah, it would be a shame. Yeah, it's not true.
It's
The
not
smaller
true.
version, again, is just the smaller version that has shown up throughout your life
Mhm.
that disguises itself in various ways, but it isn't real. It's just a narrative that keeps playing over and
Yeah.
over.
I wanted to shift a little bit to the book that you had written, Living Service, The Journey of a Prosperous Coach. What stirred in you to create that, and why has service become such a cornerstone or just important in your work?
Yeah, I didn't want to write the book. I felt I don't want to write. I don't know how to write. So here's the narrative. I don't know how to write. I don't really have anything to say. People won't really like it. Who am I to write this book? So all of this is going on. I'm sure many of you can take it and substitute in and out various words. But I got to this point where I could not avoid writing this book. And often in my life, the direction that I've gone in, that you might say is kind of a bizarre way to describe manifestation, is I head in the direction of the thing that is the most uncomfortable. That whatever shows up that appears uncomfortable, it's not a signpost to stop or to head in another direction. It's actually, oh, go deeper in, Melissa. Keep following that. So this was the book, and I wrote this book and many different iterations or drafts of this book. And I remember when it came out, it actually came out September 19th, 5 years ago. It was on Amazon. But I remember writing the book, and I wanted to write the book because I had been in so many coaching groups where people were really trying to present as very competent and successful. And let me tell you about my high fee client. But what was going on behind the curtains was what I was experiencing, but everybody's own unique experience of it. And I thought, well, if I just really say what my experience has been, to be very honest and open, well, let's see what happens. And I also wanted to add a little humor into it, but that's what I did. And the book, even today, I had this idea of, oh, really, Melissa, you need to write another book because that's going to be old news. My experience is the book just keeps on serving, because it's typically people's experiences with learning, with growing, with wanting to create something and having all the doubt that they have around it. The name Living Service actually, it came to me brushing my teeth. I was at a retreat, and it was going to be time for me to name this book, and the book was almost at the end. And I kept thinking, what is this? What is it? And I realized that the very thing that I had been encouraged to test out by my coach, Steve Chandler, service, when I was creating a client. He would always say, Melissa, what would serve this person? I didn't even know what service meant. And finally, he's like, what would help? I think that was 6 months into my first year together. I just didn't get it. And then I treated it like a tool where I could attempt to manipulate people. I saw it as do this, get that. I saw service as wing sales. I just played around with this thing, totally didn't get it. And I realized that the name of the book, Living Service, was actually the journey I had been on. That over time, continually returning to what would help, became so integrated that there was no other place to go. I could see the power in it. That did not mean that I was giving coaching away for free for 6 months. And gosh, I hope you figure out you want to do this one day. It was offering to help somebody in a session, 2, 3, sometimes 4, and there was no payment for it. And I really wanted to see what could start to shift. I wanted to see how ready someone was.
Yeah.
I wanted to see, were they coachable? I just wanted to see these things. And over time on this path, the concept of service has shifted for me. Like my example earlier, being able to ask questions about, here's what's required of you, that's of service. So my service has shifted, it's deepened, and it comes from a place of living it. And by no means have I mastered any of this. It's just an ongoing process.
Do you feel like there's also, as you've integrated more, you embody more of the principles, is there just a flow between your sort of work life and your home life, your personal life?
Yeah, definitely. After I started to really question my own reality and what I thought was true and what I thought was real, that started to shift a lot. That'd be a whole other conversation we could have, but that changed it. That changed it.
Yeah, I think that's an important conversation to have. So maybe we will do a take 2 on that, because looking at the way, if I took myself personally, I framed certain things in my life one way for a really long time. And then when I had the willingness and really vulnerability to say, perhaps there's other ways to look at it, or there's parts of that are true and maybe other parts aren't. And those, I think, the beginning, when we begin to do that work, it can feel pretty vulnerable, like, because I was letting go of something that I had identified as myself for a long time. But then I find, even when I was listening to you earlier in this conversation, that I believe that when we look in the mirror again and again and ask the questions of ourselves, we hold ourselves more lightly. It doesn't have that tone of seriousness, or almost like penalty to self if we've done something that we maybe used to have considered wrong or bad or whatever it was. But now just holding ourselves with compassion. And I've gotten to the place where I can laugh at myself and laugh at my ridiculousness, or,
Yeah, in fact, I love that you said more compassion, and I wanted to say, and levity.
yeah, levity.
Uh,
It's great.
I was in New York visiting my daughter, and there was a bookstore near where she lives. And I went in there and I saw this book that said Disappointing Affirmations. And I picked it up and I started reading it. I was just laughing. So I walked around with the book and I would open it up from time to time and I would just start laughing. So I bought this book. I've sent it to a number of clients, but I wanted to share. You had asked me if I had a mantra. And I think this might be a great place for us to complete. So one of my current mantras, and I've shared it with clients, it's in the book. Nobody's coming to save you. I'm so sorry. You're the adult.
Yes, that's big. It's really big. What does that mean to you? What happens, what inner shift is possible when someone realizes that?
That all the stories and all the excuses and all the blame of others and for why I'm at this place in my life, sorry, you're the adult. And if you want something to shift, you gotta step into that space. You just gotta step into that space. We all know it's true, and most of us would like to hide over here and have somebody take care of
Right.
us. Oh, make it go away. Just no.
I'm thinking right now, like, so many of us didn't even know what it meant to segue into being an adult. And we just knew, like, our generation, we knew we got out of the house if we went to college. But it was up to us to begin work. And then maybe we were intentional by choice. We just defaulted the things that we chose for ourselves because we weren't as aware, all good. But now it's like that reminder that we are adults. It comes with a beautiful responsibility and opportunity and all the things, but I think it's a great reminder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's stepping out of being the victim and more into the owner.
Yes. So thank you for being here. I mean, you are leaving us with that mantra. I usually wrap up the end with, where can people find you? But is there anything else that comes to your mind that you want to share for any part of our lives. And if you feel complete, I'm good with that too.
Yeah. If there's something that you really want to create, it is possible. It doesn't matter what story's going on in your head. It doesn't matter people telling you can't do it. None of that matters. It's if there's something you really want and you're willing to start taking action on it, it doesn't matter how long it's going to take you, it will be yours. Thank you,
Very,
Mark.
very
I really
powerful.
appreciate
Yes,
it.
thanks for being here. And I will put links to the 2 books. And if you want to name your website now, you can share that.
It's melissafordcoaching.com.
Perfect. Many thanks. I can't wait to do it again. And to the listeners, thanks for being here as always. We'll see you next time. Thanks for listening to this episode of Mystical Sisterhood. To learn more about my one-on-one coaching programs or join the Mystical Sisterhood membership, visit MaureenSpielman.com or mysticalsisterhood.com. Thanks so much. I'll see you in the next episode.